just as the boys sang it to you on the coast, the band out here played Auld Lang Syne. And now one more question from Warren Brown. What was the strangest thing you've ever seen in the Rose Bowl, Warren?
Harry, I think it will be a combination of things. That is to say, I'd like to talk to you for a second or two about the only man who ever played in the Rose Bowl twice with two different teams. That would be Sweet Erickson. He showed up in the Rose Bowl in the war year, World War I, with the Great Lakes team, and then he was back there a little while later with Washington and Jefferson that played California in what I believe was the only nothing-to-nothing game that was ever played in the Rose Bowl. So I'm going to dash back and do a little work for Marshall Field and Sullivan Evans now, Harry.
Okay, and thank you very much, Warren Brown. And now moving into our left is that very staunch character of the nation today, Swede Larson, for many years coach of the Navy. A man that's brought great teams to the nation and great teams to the Naval Academy at Annapolis. Move in, Swede. I know that you've been enjoying the ball game out here. It's been a honey all the way. And now I'll let you take over for the moment and give your version briefly of this contest out here today. Line play, backfield play, passing and kicking. Okay, Swede Larson.
Well, this has been one of the finest ball games I've seen this season. The thing that has impressed me more than anything else, however, is the fine kicking on the part of both teams. Another thing that's particularly impressive to me is the speed with which both backfields start. Both Duke and Oregon State's backs get off the mark as fast as any ball club I've ever seen. And the defensive play on both sides has been sharp. And these men are holding nothing back.
Well, that's very true. And I know that you're somewhat perhaps depressed over the fact that you're not going to coach anymore, at least for a while. But tell me, when do you join the Navy? When do you leave for active duty, Swede Larson?
I was detached from the Naval Academy yesterday. I leave after the ball game today for my new station at Newport, Rhode Island.
Well, that's fine, and best of luck to you throughout all your years in the Navy and also in your coaching profession. But one more question. What was the toughest ball game you had on your schedule last year?
The Pennsylvania game.
The Pennsylvania game, which
right.
brings to mind that George Munger, the coach of Pennsylvania, is out here in front of us now. You two fellows aren't sitting very far apart. So thanks very much, Swede Larson. And now let's go back to the field and to the band. America. Walking into our broadcasting booth here in the 50-yard line at Duke Stadium in Durham, North Carolina, comes Bob Considine. On the line with Bob Considine, so take it on the line, Bob.
Thank you, Harry. I just want to tell you people this is one of the best football games I've seen all year. I think Duke was a little overconfident. In fact, you might say more than a little. And they seem to be just coming out of that fog now. They didn't realize those Oregon State boys could really hit as hard as they do. Do you think that?
I think you're absolutely correct. I do feel that they thought Oregon State wasn't quite up to their standards, at least at the start of the ball game.
They're hitting like thunder and lightning out there, fans. Those Oregon boys are. They apparently haven't come 3,000 miles for nothing. And Duke, however, is waking up, and I think that favorite is finally going to come through by the skin of his teeth.
Well, Bob, it was very interesting to me that Wally Wade said that Steve Black was the greatest back, perhaps all-around back that he's ever had since he's been coaching here at Duke, which has been 11 years. Steve Black, he says, is a great blocker, great tackler, fine runner, good passer, and a very fine kicker. What do you think of the performance of Steve Black here in the first half?
Well, I think he suffered, as all the other Duke boys have, by the tremendous zeal and fire of these Oregon State boys. And Wallace Wade certainly knows more about his ball players than I, but I think he had a little number named Ace Parker who might have had an edge on Steve Black.
He was a great player, there's no question about it, and thank you very much, Bob Considine. And now, college men, you have heard us give full details on how you can serve your country by becoming prospective deck and engineering officers in the United States Navy. Listen carefully to every word of this announcement, and I'll tell you how some of you may serve your country by becoming Navy aviators. The Navy needs 15,000 men now in their senior, junior, or sophomore years in college as prospective naval aviators. Students who enlist today will not be required to commence training until the completion of their current college year, so get in the Navy, boys, and all applicants must have been United States citizens for at least 10 years. They must be unmarried and between the ages of 20 to 26 inclusive. For complete details, go to the nearest naval training station today. Harry Wismer turning you back to Bill Stern. Come in, Bill.
Thank you very much, Harry. Teams are back on the playing field. It's just about the time to start off the second half of the Rose Bowl game, this time from Durham. Here we go, and it'll be Duke booting it off. Oregon State receiving. The score is 7-7. Steve Locke is back in at right halfback. Tommy Davis is in at the other halfback. Prothero's in at quarterback, and Siegfried's in at fullback. Now, we'll give you the Oregon State lineup in just a moment. First, the backfield. Joe Day's in at fullback. Deathman and Durden are the two wing backs, and Peters the quarterback. All ready to go again, and here we go. Bob Gant comes forward and boots it, and she's going down into the end zone. Taken by Don Durden, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or rather behind the end zone. He's back to the 5, the 10, up to the 15, the 20, and hits down on the 20-yard line. Don Durden, right halfback of Oregon State, runs that ball up to the 20, is belted backwards, goes to the 19, and comes back to the 20 when the referee puts the ball down, saying that's where the forward motion was stopped. Bob McDonough, the right tackle of Duke, is the man who made the stop. We start the second half of the game, and the score is 7-7. Oregon State onto the offense. They have the ball on their own 20, first and 10. Bob Deathman back. The ball goes back to Day. Day in the center of the line, comes out to the 25, up to the 30, crosses the 30, gets across to the 33, and he's stopped by Mike Karmazin and Jim Smith. Moved up to the 33-yard line, and it is now Oregon State ball, first and 10 as they reel off their orange jerseys. Bob Deathman and sail back this time. The ball goes back to Day. Day gives it to Durden. Durden fading back to check a forward pass. Throws it on the flat intended for George E. Selig. He can't get his hands on. Goes for an incomplete forward pass. Steve Lack, the right halfback, was the man who batted that ball down. 1 minute of playing time have elapsed in the beginning of the second half from Durham, North Carolina. The score is 7-7. Duke and Oregon State, and it is the annual Rose Bowl game. At halftime, we hope you heard the ceremonies from the actual Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Certainly some great memories brought back by Don Wilson, Ken Carpenter, Buddy Twist, Hal Reynolds. Joe Day carries the ball in the center of the line. That time picks up about 2 yards. Jim Lipscomb, the right guard of Duke, is the man who stops him. Jake Poole is in at the other guard position. That's the two second string. Well, it isn't right to call them second string. The two number 2 team men on the guard position. And the remainder of the line is a first string line on a first string backfield. Comes Oregon State back to the line of scrimmage now. It is second down, 9 yards to go. Bob Deathman in the tailback with single wing over the right. He's carrying the ball around to his left this time, gives it to Durden. Durden is fading back to throw forward pass. Lapples it out to Deathman. Deathman takes it back to the line of scrimmage on the 30, gets back to the 34, but even so, loses about 1.5 yards when he's stopped by Bob McDonough and Mike Karmazin. And the ball is back on the 32-yard line. We'll call it on the 32. Referee is calling, however, the ball back to the line of scrimmage. May have a penalty on that particular play. If we do, we'll call it off. They'll up that penalty as fast as they pace it off. Almost 2 minutes of playing time have elapsed in the second half of the game from Durham, North Carolina. The score is 7-7. Referee puts the ball back on the line of scrimmage. Motions for the two teams to come back in and play. Calls both teams offside. However, Oregon State electing to play this safe despite the fact it is only third down. Elects to kick. Don Durden is back in the right half spot. Back spot. He's back on the 23 of Oregon State. He's going to boot it from there. Almost blocked, but he gets it up in the air. It's not his best kick, but it's crossing the midfield stripe. Goes down to the Duke 40-yard line. Gets to the 35, to the 34, the 33, down to the 32, down to the 31-yard line. And Tommy Davis, the left halfback of Duke, finally stops the forward motion of the ball. Duke takes over first and 10 on their own 31. Second half is 2 minutes over. The score is 7-7. It's the annual Rose Bowl game from Durham, North Carolina. And there has been a tie score up to the moment of 7 points apiece. Oregon State scored first. Duke scored secondly. Tom Davis in the tailback, a single wing over the right. Warren Siegfried's in the 3 spot. Prothero's up in the quarterback spot. Lack's out in the wing back spot. Ball goes back to Siegfried. Fakes to give it to Davis. Keeps it himself with his head down. Dives over zone 30. Gets to the 33 and is stopped by Bill Halverson, left guard of Oregon State. Gain of about 2.5 to 3 yards on that play. We'll bring up a second down for Duke and leave between 7.5. We'll call it an 8 yard still to gain. Almost 3 minutes of playing time have elapsed in the third period of the ball game, and the score is Duke 7, Oregon State 7. Tom Davis in the tailback this time with a single wing over to the right. The Rose Bowl game from Durham, North Carolina. Davis carrying the ball, giving it on a reverse to Steve Locke. Locke coming around the left side of his line. He's back to the 35. Hit down on the 35. Martin Shavs and Don Durden. The boy who hit him down. And a smile goes over Freddie Scheidler's face, who's spotting Oregon State as a brilliant tackle is made by Don Durden. Comes sailing out of nowhere to make that one. Tom Conley spotting Duke for us.
Each boy doing a splendid job. Duke back onto the offense now, running out of an unbalanced line. Oregon State using a six-man line, two men backing it up. A combination wing back in the middle of that line, about 5 yards deeper, then two halfbacks back and a safety man behind it. In other words, it's a 5-2-1-2. One defense. Steve Locke taking the ball from a punt formation, running back to the 35, up the 40. The 45 across the middle of the field, down to the 45. He's down to the 40, and he's stopped down the 43-yard line by Lloyd Wickett. His body rolled all the way to the 40, but the referee said he was stopped on the Oregon State 44. Steve Locke running from a punt formation, crosses the middle of the field and goes down to Oregon State territory. Duke's ball, 1st and 10 on the Oregon State 44-yard line. 3 minutes of playing time have elapsed in Durham, North Carolina, in the third period of the ball game between Duke and Oregon State. It's 7-7. Tom Davis on the tailback. Don't pay attention to that pistol going off. That was just somebody who was a bit celebrating. Tommy Davis pitching a pass out to Bob Gadd. Gadd takes it on the 30, gets to the 27, and he's stopped on the 27. Davis to Gant. Tom Davis to Bob Gant, the right end, and he's finally stopped by John Durden, the right halfback of Oregon State. After the ball has been moved down to the Oregon State 28-yard line, and it's another first down for the Blue Devils of Duke. And Duke is marching down the field. Comes Duke out of the huddle. They run back to the line of scrimmage now. This complete stadium, absolutely jam-packed, 55,000 fans watching a great ball game. Davis in the tailback. The ball goes to Siegfried. Siegfried to Locke. Locke gives it to Smith on an end around. Smith being thrown for a loss of about 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Jimmy Smith, the left end, tries to do work, a double reverse, and gets caught for a 10-yard loss by George Zellick, the left end of Oregon State. Here's what happened to the ball. The ball went back to Siegfried. Siegfried cut to his right, gave it to Steve Lack. Lack cut to his left, gave it to Jim Smith, the left end, who was coming around to his right. And Smith was caught for about a 10-yard loss behind the line of scrimmage. Oregon State now on the defense, using for the first time this afternoon a 7-man line. Pulling up that secondary defense awful close. They're not much worried about passes. Tommy Davis in the tailback of a single wing over the right for Duke this time. Almost 4 minutes of playing time have elapsed in the third period. Davis back. He's going to throw a pass. That goes a long way. It's completed to Bobby Gadd. He takes it on the 20-yard line. Takes the ball on the 20, and as he does, he's hit immediately by Bob Desmond. Both man and ball carrier go down into a huddle. The ball bounds away from Bob Gant and goes for an incomplete forward pass. Bobby Gant, the right hand, had his mitts on that ball for a fraction of a second. He was hit by Desmond too quickly to let him keep the ball. The man, the ball carrier, and the ball went sprawling on the ground in different directions, and it's ruled an incomplete forward pass. Returning the ball to the line of scrimmage, which is on the Oregon State 30-yard line. Tommy Davis on the tailback, or rather the 40-yard line. Tommy Davis on the tailback with a single wing over the left. The ball goes back to Davis. He's following over to his left now, following four-man interference. Tries to get away from two men and can't do it. Coming sailing out of nowhere is George Peters, who comes in, and Bill Halverson, the left guard of Oregon State, who throw him for another 6-yard loss, which puts the ball back on the Oregon State 46-yard line. And it is fourth down coming up now, and 27 yards to go. 4th and 27 for Duke, who on 4 running plays have lost 17 yards. Duke's ball on the Oregon State 47-yard line, a little better than 18 yards in from the eastern side of the playing field. Not quite halfway through the third period. Lack is back in punt formation. He's going to boot from the Duke 45. He does. He angles it away from the safety man, who's Bob Desmond. Desmond letting the ball roll out of bounds, and it goes out of bounds somewhere in the neighborhood of the Oregon State 15-yard line. Referee calls it on the 15. Call it the 15.5. Oregon State takes over 1st and 10 in their own 15.5-yard line. And the Duke Blue Devils move on to the defense, and Oregon State goes on to the offense. Here's the score at the end of the first period. Alabama nothing, Texas A&M nothing. That's from Dallas, Texas. From New Orleans, Fordham 2, Missouri nothing at the end of the first period. George Bokinski has come in at quarterback, and Tommy Prothero has gone out. A single wing over the left this time. Don Durden's in the tailback. Durden fading back to throw a pass. Elects to run with the ball. He's back to the 15, up to the 20, the 25, up to the 30, and hit out of bounds on the 31-yard line by Tommy Davis. Tommy Davis is the brother of Jeff Davis, the left halfback who played for Duke in the Rose Bowl in 1938 and played a brilliant football game, too. And Tommy's playing all right today. He fumbled on the opening kickoff this afternoon and put Duke in a hole. They get out of that hole. But Mr. Davis has played himself a whale of a lot of football. 9 minutes of playing time remaining in the third period. The score is 7-7. Joe Day carries the ball for Oregon State and comes through the center of the line, picking up roughly about 2 yards before he's stopped by Bob Barnett, the center of Duke. Referee calls it, however, about a yard as he moves the ball back, so it'll be second down coming up now. And, well, we'll call that 8 yards to go. Between 8 and 9. Here comes Oregon State out of the huddle. They run back to the line of scrimmage. Quint Greno, their potential All-American centers over that ball. Bob Deathman carrying the ball back to throw forward pass. Throws a long looping ball. A beautiful catch made by Durden. Durden takes it on the 50s down to the 45, the 40, down to the 35, the 30, and he stopped on the 27. Bob Deathman throwing a beautiful forward pass is taken on a sensational one-arm catch by John Durden, who brought this enormous crowd of 55,000 fans to their feet when he made one of these one-handed catches, took it almost in the middle of the field, and went down to the Duke 27-yard line before he was stopped. Winston Siegfried was the man who finally stopped him, and time has been called out. No one is injured at the moment on the play. Time has just been called out by the Oregon State team. But speaking of injuries, not that there have been any today, but there are people being injured in these times, and I think you know who I mean. And you're going to be helping an awful lot if you give to the American Red Cross. Because in the case of injuries, they're the first one on the scene of action. And there is no more worthy cause today than the American Red Cross. The band down at the far end of the field is beginning to strike up. It's about 300 pieces strong, but at the moment the whole 300 pieces have far from taken to the air or taken to their instruments. But there is a Duke cheer going on, and with time out and the score 7-7, about halfway through the third period, let's listen to the band music. There's a change at right end for Duke University. Al Piasecki has come in, and Bob Gant has gone out. Well, there was one man early in the season who didn't count Oregon State out of the running in the Pacific Coast Conference, and that was Lon Steiner, who said, "I don't see how my team can finish worse than second." He was certainly right. They didn't finish worse than second. As a matter of fact, they finished first in one of the toughest conferences in the world. Tommy Prothero has come back in at quarterback. He replaced George Bilkinski. Leo Long is in at fullback, replacing Winston Siegfried. Those are all changes in the Duke backfield. Oregon State on the march, 1st and 10 on the Duke 27. The ball goes back to Durden. Durden gives it to Day. Day into the center of the line. He moves to the 26, and he's stopped by Bob Barnett. Halfway through the third period, the score is Oregon State 7, Duke 7. The game from Durham, North Carolina, exclusively, as throughout all these past years, reaching your ears through the National Broadcasting Company. We hope you're enjoying the ball game this afternoon. By contractual agreement with the Tournament of Roses in Pasadena, California. The game being played this afternoon in Durham, North Carolina, and a great game, as are all Rose Bowl games, always great. A single wing over the left this time. Joe Day carrying the ball. He smashes through his own right guard, goes past the 20, gets to the 15-yard line, and he's stopped by Tommy Prothero. And Steve Locke moves the ball all the way down to the Duke 15-yard line, and that is another first down for Oregon State. And the Beavers are showing why they were the second strongest offensive team on the West Coast. This was a team which had been said was a great defensive team, but not too good on the offense. Well, somebody forgot to show them the script. They've been magnificent on the offense all afternoon, as has Duke. The score is 7-7. Single wing over the right this time. Don Durden on the tailback. Durden carrying the ball, cutting over his own left side tackle. Moves past the 15, gets to the 13. And he's stopped by Al Piasecki, the right end of Duke University, who had a circle behind his own line on the defense to make the tackle. Ball is resting down now on the Duke 13-yard line. A gain on that play of at least 5 yards. It'll be second down coming up now. 5 yards to go. Oregon State's ball down on the Duke. Well, we'll call it between the 12 and the 13. Duke is playing a 6-man line. 3 men backing up that line and 2 wing backs. Don Durden on the tailback of a single wing over the right this time. Durden carrying the ball. He's still behind the line. It's going to be done at 15 by Jimmy Smith. Left end of Duke, and Mr. Smith made himself a lot of tackle that time. He came through and got Durden around the ankles. And it was really beautiful to watch because it's the kind of a tackle you can't get away from. Oregon State back into a huddle. It's the third down coming up. The loss of the yards they picked up on the preceding play was nullified by the loss which they lost on that play. And so it's 3rd and 10. Call it 9.5, actually. Oregon State's ball midway between the 2 sideline stripes. Down on the Duke 15-yard line. Bob Deathman carrying the ball around to the left, fading back to throw forward pass, and he is not able to get that ball away from him. Bob looked down to the right tackle. It finally knocks that ball down, bats it down. The ball rolls around loosely on the ground. A whole host of Duke players are after the ball, but the referee stands where the ball was finally jarred out of the passer's hands and says, This goes for an incomplete forward pass, and the ball must be brought back to the line of scrimmage. It is 4th down coming up on the Duke 15-yard line. Oregon State's ball, 15 yards away from the goal line. And now, if you were the quarterback, what would you call? Oregon State has the ball midway between the two sideline stripes. Should the Beavers try a kick for 3 points? Remember, it's a 7-7 ball game. Should they try to pick up these 10 yards, which they need for the first down? Should they try to get the 15 for the touchdown? Should they try a field goal for 3 points, which would put them out in front? Well, here comes the answer. Seamus is coming in at quarterback. Warren Seamus, he's the place-kicking specialist for Oregon State. He's going in place of Georgie Peters. Bob Deathman will hold. They're going to attempt the kick from about the Duke 25, which means it'll be a 35-yard placement if it's good. It's going to be kicked from about the 24. Warren Seamus, who's just come in at quarterback, is going to try this placement. A hush settles over the crowd. This might mean the ball game. Waiting for that pass. It's touchdown. The kick is up in the air. Kick is up in the air. It is not good. It is not good. Kick was off to one side and a bit low. And the kick is not good, and a big cheer goes up from the crowd as they realize that the kick is not good. Remember, this game being played in Durham. Naturally, there are a great many of Duke supporters here. A new ball is thrown in now. The old ball is taken out of the ball game. The ball is touched down to the 20-yard line. 1st and 10, automatic touchback. Duke takes over. Score is 7-7. Halfway through the 3rd period of the game from Durham, North Carolina, the annual Rose Bowl game. Tom Davidson, tailback of a single wing over the left. The entire line shifts over the right. Steve Locke is carrying the ball on the reverse. He's back to the 15, up to the 20, does a tight-roping act coming down the sidelines to the 23, and is finally hit out of bounds on the 23 by Georgie Peters, who came back in at quarterback, replacing Warren Seamus, who was only in for the attempted kick. Score is Duke 7, Oregon State 7. This is the first year in 26 years that the Oregon State Beavers have been first in the Pacific Conference and into the Rose Bowl. And as Percy Losi, their very fine athletic director, said, we certainly wanted them to play the Rose Bowl game this year. It took us a long time to get into it. Well, they're not only playing it, but they're playing a whale of a lot of football. And for Duke University, I believe, we're having a penalty now. Never mind what I believe. Let's get back to the penalty. It's a 5-yard penalty, backfield in motion, called against Duke. 5 yards against Duke. So the 3 yards which Locke picked up is nullified, and 5 additional yards are paced off as the boy has returned back to the line of scrimmage, and then plus the 5-yard penalty. It is now 2nd down, coming up 15 yards to go. Locke is back in punt formation for Duke. He's standing back on the Duke 5. He is not going to punt. He's going to run with the ball. He's back to the 7, up to the 10, hit down on the 10-yard line by a whole host of Oregon State linemen. Martin Shavs, Bob Sanders, and Norm Peters are all in there. That's the right guard, the right tackle, and the right end. Gene Gray has replaced Don Durden at right halfback for Oregon State. Ball is resting now on the Duke 9-yard line. It is 3rd down coming up. And we will call that loss of 6 yards on that play, 5 yards on the penalty preceding that play. 11 yards plus the 10 makes a total of 21. It's 3rd and 21, and Locke goes back in the punt formation. He's standing back just into his end zone. He's almost on the goal line in punt formation. He's going to boot. He does. Up the field comes the ball. A very nice kick. This man can really boot it. Bob Deathman takes it on the Oregon State 45, gets away from one tackler but can't get away from another. Jim Smith hits him down on the Oregon State 46. And the Beavers are stopped on the 46-yard line as Deathman tries to give that ball a ride back. You know, it's very natural to see Duke do some wonderful kicking. 3 years ago, we remember in the Rose Bowl game, then it was a boy by the name of Tipton who was booting for Duke. And he did some pretty nice booting then, too. Eric Tipton, Eric the Red. Remember him? A great football player. He's watching this game this afternoon. Oregon State takes over. 1st and 10 on their own 46-yard line. Gene Gray's in the tailback of a single wing over to the left. The ball goes back to Gene. He's cutting around the left side of his line. Following 3-minute interference, back to the 45, across to the midfield stripe, down to the Duke 45, the 40, down to the 35, and he's finally belted out of bounds as he goes down to the Duke 34-yard line. Steve Locke, the right halfback of Duke, is the man who finally knocks him out of bounds. Referee says he stepped out on the 31. 31-yard line is where the play goes down to, and Duke again has their backs to the wall. It's an Oregon State, well, way more than a first down. Oregon State, this time, the time is called out as Duke asks for timeout. And while time is out, I don't think I have to remake this as a reminder, but just in case you are enjoying this ball game today, remember it's coming to you absolutely free, no strings of any kind on it. There is something you can do, though, if you'd like to, and we'd all like you to do it. That's reach into that pocket of yours and pull out a quarter, a dollar, whatever you've got in there, and go buy some defense stamps. If you really feel flush, go buy a defense bond. That is if you enjoy football, if you enjoy baseball, if you enjoy boxing, if you like these things that come out of your loudspeaker, if you like these sports which come to you the year round, and all you have to do is sit at home and flick on the switch of your radio to get them. Well, show your appreciation. Keep these sports moving on, and you can do it by buying either defense bonds or defense stamps. Just protect the fact that we're going to have these sports next year and the year after and the year after that. Make certain we are by just reaching in your pocket right now. Let's see what change you got there. Take it out and get down the corner and get some defense stamps. Will you do that? Okay, it's a deal. Time is out. We have 5 minutes of playing time remaining in the third period of the game from Durham, North Carolina. The score is 7-7, Duke and Oregon State. And now Oregon State has marched down to the Duke 31-yard line where the Beavers have a ball, 1st and 10, 15 yards in from the eastern side of the playing field. Winston Siegfried, the fullback, is going into the ball game. Leo Long is coming out for Duke University. Ron Steiner this afternoon has used 4 different defenses so far during this ball game. He's used a 7-1-2-1, a 6-2-2-1, a 5-3-2-1, and a 6-3-2. All of which tells you that this defense, which is so highly touted of Oregon State, has naturally been so. Bob Deathman back, a single wing over the right. The ball goes back to Day. Day with his head down. Goes through the center of the line, crosses the Duke 30, gets to the Duke 27, and is stopped by Jim Lipscomb, the right guard of Duke University. The ball has been moved down to the Duke 27-yard line. Up 5.5 to 6 yards still to gain. Oregon State's ball. Third period of the game. Score is 7-7. The Beavers are down on the Duke 27. The ball goes back to Deathman. Deathman cuts over the right side of his line. Gets to the 25, down to the 20, and is stopped on the 20 by Bob Barnett. Ball is moved down to the Duke 20-yard line. And as it moves down to the 20, they may bring in the line sticks to see whether or not this is or is not a first down. Referee has not signified. The referee's picking up the ball and bringing it back to the line of scrimmage. Something was wrong with that last play. See exactly what he calls it. It's going to be a penalty against Oregon State, backfield in motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yards. 5 yards, backfield in motion called against the Beavers of Oregon State. Nullifies that gain, which had taken them down to the Duke 20-yard line. Cost them 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and moves them back to the Duke 33-yard line. So that penalty actually cost them 13 yards. Tommy Burns has come in at left guard. Jake Poole has gone out for Duke University. Here comes Oregon State back to the line of scrimmage. Don Durden is back in right halfback. He's fading back. Second forward pass. Cocks down back. Goes a long pass down to the 10-yard line. Is taken on the 10 by Gene Zellick. He's down to the 5, the 3, the 2. It's a touchdown for Oregon State. Oregon State has gone back out in front. They're leading 13-7. Don Durden, who just came back into that ball game, he's a left-handed right halfback. He threw a left-handed forward pass deep down into Duke territory. Georgie Zellick took it on about the 8, was momentarily stopped on the 5, got away from his man, crossed the goal line standing up, and the Beavers are back in front 13-7. Holding will be Bob Deathman, and kicking will be Warren Seamus, who's come back in at quarterback replacing Georgie Peters.